Hello, MSTieCast listeners. This is Joshua M. here to introduce our very informative interview with Rick Sloane, director of Hobgoblins. You may notice something different than usual. Normally we open our show with Idiot Control now, but we felt that this show needed an introduction. The reason being that while this interview is extremely informative due to circumstances beyond anyone's control, the audio is of lower quality than our normal episodes. This shouldn't affect your enjoyment, but you may want to adjust your volume accordingly. Stay tuned and enjoy.
With a fickle mind, we kick the nipple beer. Steady as a goat, we're flying over trout. Ghetto down the highway at the speed of light. All I want to feel now is the wind in my eyes. Sack of monkeys in my pocket. My sister's ready to go. Hear the engines roll now. Idiot control now. Hideous control now. Nitty on the road now. Idiot control. Wheels on fire. Burning rubber tires.
Hello and welcome to the MSTieCast. I am your host, Toby here with my cohort, Joshua MacLeod.
Hi, America.
And with us today is a very special guest, Mr. Rick Sloane, director of Hobgoblins, as seen on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Welcome, Mr. Sloane.
Hey, everybody.
It is a pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
And it is significant that this is our very first interview done via Skype credit for phones. So he is on the phone and we're on our computers because, truly, we live in the future.
No, actually, I'm a technology rebel that I never buy anything new, so once Skype is outdated is when I will probably have it.
I was that way for a long time, so I understand that.
Let's say we get right into this interview. Why make a movie about hobgoblins?
I was always known for having really good titles for my movies. It was kind of like a sixth sense where I would always be on the lookout for anything that sounded like a good title, because a lot of my scripts were a title and a two-sentence synopsis long before I actually wrote them, and I had a number of films that actually got greenlighted that way. There's a 1953 Donald Duck comic book called Trick or Treat, and the second story is called Hobgoblins. I remember when I saw that, I thought, what a great title Hobgoblins would be for a movie. The title was just, it wasn't a script at any point at this time, but years earlier, I just remember thinking, what a good title that was. That's where that was kind of hard.
And that's why the creature hobgoblins came about.
Yeah.
Did you know there were actually creatures called hobgoblins?
No, I know the word. I think on The Simpsons there's one episode where they're pulling stuff out of a hole and it's every kind of creature, and they pull out a goblin and it corrects them and goes, hobgoblin. Which I always thought was funny because I was always wondering, did they see the movie or not?
I remember that joke.
Do the hobgoblins in the movie Hobgoblins have anything to do with actual hobgoblins?
No, I was never into. I know the meaning of them. I don't know. I just remember the title itself was. It later became a movie because it sounded so much like Gremlins. Because I did Hobgoblins. What's the exact order? Ghoulies was the first knockoff. Then Critters. And then I think Ghoulies 2 and Hobgoblins simultaneously, and then Munchies. I think that was the exact order. And I just remember when I heard Ghoulies, I remember thinking, I have a title that would be just right. And yeah, distributors actually, even though the original script it's not actually based on Gremlins, it's based on Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. There were no puppets in the movie. It wasn't until the famous Gremlins that I went back to the distributor and said, this isn't a bad script. It was, but could you put some puppets in it like Gremlins? And I thought, okay, so I got one more rewrite. Yeah, that's kind of much more than the mythical Hobgoblin.
So there, because obviously you've heard the things that Hobgoblins was the ripoff of Gremlins, etc., etc.
It's actually the third ripoff of
Okay.
More in title, but yeah, it's I'm not going to debate. Is it a ripoff of Gremlins? Yeah.
I kind of wish more studio executives today would say more puppets.
I don't know about now, but today would be more CGI.
Well, that's what I mean. I believe that I prefer puppetry to CGI, and they tend to look more realistic anyway.
Well, that's because you're a puppeteer, Toby.
This is true.
I despise CGI. I've never used CGI in a movie, even when I did a sequel to Hobgoblins 20 years later. I remember the first day of shooting, the actors there, so are the Hobgoblins going to be done in CGI? And I'm thinking, no, we're going to be throwing these stuffed dolls at you. I'm very old school. They will never be CGI in my films.
Since you brought it up, are those Hobgoblins in Hobgoblins 2 the same Hobgoblins from the original Hobgoblins?
You just like saying Hobgoblins, don't you?
Yes.
See, that's a good title. Actually, yeah, they were this. I'm a pack rat. I come from a family of people, both sides of my family. Nobody throws anything away. I like an archive of my entire life, going back to, it starts with everything I ever did in school from kindergarten forward. My mother saved it. So yeah, I have the 4 original puppets, and they held up really well for 20 years. I was really planning on using them again. 2 of them did get the mouths got torn open on part 2, which I was kind of disappointed on. No, actually, the really good one with the moving mouths, it is still camera ready. It's just latex was never built to last that long. We got really fortunate. They just were sitting on a really high shelf in my converted garage for years. And it's time for a sequel finally. And actually, that's where they're sitting right now.
And it only took 20 years.
Actually, less than a year and a half to 2 years after the first movie, the foreign distributor did ask for a second Hobgoblin. So I actually wrote it way back. Hobgoblins was my first successful film, but Vice Academy, the film I did less than a year later, was my highest one. I mean, it was by far the most successful film I've ever made. And simultaneously, another distributor wanted a sequel to Vice Academy, but Vice Academy, unlike Hobgoblins at the time, had already been on television, so there was a huge demand. So literally, the Hobgoblins 2 script, it's sad, and I never threw it away. And when I went back 20 years later, I did a few changes, but a lot of it's really the script I wrote 20 years ago, and I tried making it look like I had shot it then, with that lack of moving camera and the same cheap puppet. Just trying to mimic how I would have done it if I had really made it a year and a half later.
There was one question we got more than any other question. And no matter how you answer this, people are still gonna debate this regardless. Did you intentionally make Hobgoblins intentionally bad?
The answer is yes, but whenever I say it, people dispute it even more. It's kind of like if you watch really early John Waters, like Pink Flamingos or Desperate Living, that the film just looks so bad. You think, was someone mentally ill or what went wrong? But then when you look at repeated different films he made at that time, they all look exactly like that. And you watch them more than once and you realize it was far more intentional. 2 things in Hobgoblins that I'm going to pass blame on. One is the garden tool fight. That was the damn distributor who read the script and they wanted an army guy in the movie for foreign distribution because Rambo was huge. It would be really easy to sell. So I reluctantly added the character Nick. But then they insisted you have to put an army combat scene in the movie. And I said, there's no place for one. And they said, well, show Nick at the army base. And besides not fitting in the script, there's no budget to rent an army base for a day. So the closest compromise that I could figure out was Nick demonstrating what he learned at the army base. And I thought, well, how would he do that? And I think garden tools was like the only thing. So it was put in to shut the distributor up. And they actually liked the scene enough, they asked me to go back and lengthen it because it was only 1 minute long. And the second one is how cheap the puppets look. Because that I'm going to pass along to the guy, Ken Hall, who built them. That he showed me a sketch, he showed me the first mold. They looked incredible. They looked great in still photos. We didn't get them till the night before filming. And they're showing me how to make them work. And he goes, you didn't have enough budget. They don't. I was expecting they were going to blink or have like a cable to make some weird face movement. So that was kind of first day of filming. This is where the intentionally bad thing comes from. Very first day of filming were the scenes at the house where we were throwing puppets on people. They were like listening to the record, rolling around with them. Poor Daphne on the lawn rolling with the puppet. I remember the very first time I called action to see the actors fighting with a motionless puppet and watching how cheap and bad it looked. I knew no matter what sound effects we put in post, it was going to look really And after those two things, everything else in the movie is not accidentally done that way. That's exactly the way I dressed everybody. Everyone is taking the exact direction of how they're saying their dialogue. It's not bad acting. That's how I told them to say it. Those are the words I actually wrote. And I did make everyone do it much. Kevin in particular, I had him play it dead serious because I knew it would make the fucking funnier. Instead of saying intentionally bad, I'm far more in on the joke than people think. I was fully aware of what the movie looked like. I mean, a lot of people who made bad films, like Ed Wood, they always defended their movies were really good, even if people didn't get them. I am completely aware of how it looks like. None of those jokes are lost on me.
There's a scene we were watching Hobgoblins, the Mystery Science Theater version, and there's a scene in Club Scum where one of the puppets comes and attacks them, and they rip the puppet off, and you can clearly see the arm of the puppeteer. So was that intentional?
That's one of those things. Until someone pointed that out, people watching the film never noticed it. We only saw like 2 takes of everything. Let's just say that was the better take. The first take, when they... Because I was telling whoever was... It's a scene under the table, and there's a red tablecloth over the table for no other reason than to hide the puppeteer. I hate to even use that word puppeteer. I mean, that's actually for a puppet that operates. More like whose ever hand was shaking it around. And I remember telling them, as soon as the actor grabs the puppet, to yank her hand out of there so when he pulls it forward, we don't see it. When we shot that looked like I didn't notice it. Because I know the first take, it was like 2 seconds and the hand was still there. Until someone pointed it out, no one has ever caught that. It's literally, you have to pause the movie to slow it down. If you weren't looking for it, it's so quick. But yeah, we're talking like 2 or 3 frames of someone's hand just pulling itself away from the puppet. Yeah, there's so much worse in it.
Like Kevin's house being so bland.
Oh, God. That was day 1 of filming, and we pretty much... I was a friend of the actor who played Kevin, is where they lived. Didn't have budget. I had scouted it and chose it for the exterior scenes. It wound up being used also for the interior scenes, and I don't know, his friends were barely 20. I'm pretty sure the landlord wouldn't let him paint any other color. I remember looking at it and going, white couch, white walls, one piece of artwork. We didn't have an art department. That's just what the place looked like. Yeah, that also, it was really not planned. It was there was no budget on this film. I mean, we were stealing so many locations. I think they got $100 total. But yeah, when we were filming, I remember thinking, the couch in particular was against the white wall. But you'll notice if you've seen part 2, it's extremely overcompensated. That every set is over-decorated, overly colorful. There's no white couch on a white wall again.
Going back to Club Scum really quick, where was that filmed? Because a lot of people think that it's a school cafeteria.
I've always been puzzled because it's not, and I don't think it looks like a school cafeteria. It's just we couldn't really afford to fill it with extras.
Right.
Have some fan flew out and wanted to do a video documentary where I revisited all the locations. It's on YouTube. We went to all of them. That was the only one because it's so uninteresting. It's in West Los Angeles. It's called the Music Machine. Most clubs are essentially, they're always painted black, and when you have all the lights on, which is how they look when they have people in there, it looks, to me, I always thought it looked more like a sound stage. And seriously, what school cafeteria has a bar where people are standing there getting drinks? But the only thing I did, because again, I did expect like 20 or 30 more. I told everyone to invite their friends. We had like 6 people show up for extras. So. It's just a large location with not enough extras, but the pink light on the side of the bar that goes... I actually went out and bought just to try to break up the club to make it look slightly more interesting.
What was that band? What was the Fontellis?
The Fontanelles.
Fontanelles?
Yes.
Fontanelles.
They've actually, one of them died. One of them composes TV shows. One runs a bar in Europe, which I thought was kind of fun. They actually, the lead singer is, the actors loved the Mystery Science Theater episode. I loved it, except for the interview with me at the end credits. The lead singer of Hobgoblins has the least sense of humor of the lead singer of Fontanelles. of anyone who was involved in the project. He was not amused by some of those jokes and the way the song wasn't taken seriously. You have to admit, it's not a bad song. I mean, I've been asked for many, many years, was it ever available as a single? I don't know how many were pressed, but before I met them, there is a 45 of that song. Well, it's considered one of the most collectible Hobgoblin items. I have one. Yeah, they were kind of, I guess you'd call them one-hit wonders. They went their separate ways. The lead singer's been in 2 other bands since then, but I'm pretty sure Hobgoblins is still and forever will be their mainstay fame.
Did you pick the song, or did they pick Kiss Kicker?
They gave me a demo with 7 songs. They wanted to do a song called Lose My Head, which I just know from an editing standpoint, you need a song with a really heavy bass line for easy editing. And Lose My Head, it was terrible. And I just remember thinking, if you really thought Lose My Head was your best song, it would have been on your 45. And to me, Kiss Kicker was without contest. Actually, the end credit song was almost the one I was going to pick. But I thought Kiss Kicker was their best, the catchiest of all their songs. And we were down to the day on set. I think they intentionally didn't bring a tape of it because they wanted to do the other song. It was my film. I told them which song they would in advance, and that's the one I made them do. But yeah, I did handpick Kiss Kicker.
Wise choice? You folks at home,
the end credit song, I think it's called Lose My Head. The song over the end credits is pretty good. A lot of people don't remember it because it's not the one that make a lot of. There's no jokes being made at the lyrics of that song. But that's their second best one. And they do have 2 other ones. They're in the background, so people don't catch them. I think there's Love Me Not. There's one when they first get to the club. The guitar chord sounds when you see the van driving up. That's the first song. And then while Kevin's chasing for the creatures, before Nick starts playing the guitar, I'll do the 4th song. So yeah, there are 4 songs total.
Darren Norris, the club DJ, what was it like working with him before he really made it big in animation and television?
Darren's a really good sport. He appeared a year later in Vice Academy for me. Was a complete gentleman when 20 years later I reunited the cast for new interviews. He did not need to say yes. I mean, he said yeah. I mean, that was his very first movie. That was his first job. I only regret his part wasn't larger. He wasn't even doing voiceover work yet. And I just remember thinking, I don't know if it's specifically his voice. He has such animated eyes, but his facial movements go along with whatever voice he's doing. So I'm sure whoever is recording him this week, he's fun to watch. But he was just really funny. I mean, he just jumped out of so many people who came in to read for us as someone who, for a tiny part, I doubled his dialogue after we chose him. Darren was great. Dwayne Whitaker, who went on to be in Pulp Fiction, was someone else. It was his first movie, and I could tell the interview. He nailed the character. He is not fond of Hobgoblins, probably second to someone else. He did not want to do the interview. And the actress, Tammy Clatterbuck, who played Fantasia, is a pretty significant soap opera actress today. She was on Young and the Restless for 2 years. So, yeah, there are 3 people with a claim to fame today that that was their first movie. I'd say Darren's the nicest about it, but yeah, all 3 have some regrets.
And it was their first film for all 3 of them.
Yeah.
One question that I think Toby came up with this question, which is, poetic irony or not, Daphne in the movie kills a hobgoblin with a hoe. And is it a total coincidence that a slutty character uses a hoe?
I'd like to say it was planned. I don't think when we did the film that word was used as much. Skag was a much funnier term to call a hoe, which that word is so dated, nobody even knows what it is when they watch the film. The closest word today to skag would be skank, but I think it's a more from the word anyway. We didn't even know what garden tools were actually going to be around that house. We didn't bring them as props. I actually was hoping for 2 rakes, but they had 1 rake and 1 hoe. But while we were filming it, no one picked up on the joke. Even I didn't really pick up on it. But I know it was really important to me that Kevin trips on it later and takes it with him to try to kill Fantasia. It just set the theme that, wow, he learned how to fight with that garden tool, and it's actually being used again in the plot. No, we did pick up on that one, actually. There's many jokes that we weren't too aware of that, Mystery Science Theater definitely pulled out better than we did. But no, it is a good connection, but at the same time, no, instead we were making jokes about that one. The only joke that kept going around was the actress who played Fantasia had such a deep voice, everyone was naming her Fantasia. But we didn't have the hoe joke going at all. We didn't catch that.
It's just one of those beautiful, spontaneous moments.
Actually, it may be one of the few spontaneous. No, we didn't pick that up. The word was not. It was so barely used then to describe a character like Daphne. Yeah, watching the film today, it's pretty easy to pick up on. Wow, that hoe just grabbed a hoe. Mostly because Beavis and Butt, it's one of the things. But no, we didn't pick up on it.
When you have slutty character, this is another big question and a big controversial question, which is a lot of people say this movie is misogynistic. What do you say to that?
It's more why is every female character a slut in this movie? It's much more likely. I was amazed people picked it up in that movie. Vice Academy is the one that's really guilty of that. I portray everyone in a really negative, derogatory light, and for some reason, nobody picks up on things like how stupid Nick is. All the characters have at least one various mental illness, from sexual addiction to nymphomania to sexual repression. I'm calling 976 lines, which people don't have anymore, I think. They were all dysfunctional, and so much of the dialogue, you really have to see the non-Mystery Science Theater version, because they took, for a film that doesn't have one bad word of language, they took about 7 to 9 minutes out of offensive jokes. So the stuff that actually made it TV, I mean, you're just hearing the setups for a lot of jokes. I mean, you're not hearing the full punchlines. But yeah, all the women in the film are portrayed as sluts. So the guys aren't portrayed in a more positive view. They're just as bad. But maybe because the female characters took it further, I never saw it as misogyny, but at the same time, yeah, it's kind of just, yeah, the women are portrayed really negatively. But let's just say it got a lot of laughs rather than offended. That actually, considering I reused that format for all the Vice Academy films, I did 6 of them, that whole idea of dressing women as promiscuous and having them just oversex and some of the derogatory stuff they say, it kind of became, I don't know, that's probably my biggest calling card before Hobgoblins went on to Mystery Science Theater. So, yeah, it was a movie earlier than I thought people would pick up on it. But, yeah, it's definitely, it's in all my films. That's just the one. The only one that Mystery Science Theater decided to call me.
Plot holes. There are a lot. I don't want to dance around this. There were a lot of plot holes we found. Chief among
more implausibility, but it was a tricky script because it was never written to have puppets in it. I don't know. Have you seen Don't Be Afraid of the Dark? They remade it like a year and a half ago with CGI.
I've seen the original, but not the remake.
Well, the remake is but, that's the movie I was trying to do. The original script of Hobgoblins is McCready. There was no movie studio law. He was this crazy old man who lived next door to Kevin, who was close. I think he was in high school in the original script. And he always kept to himself, and there was all these weird things happening. Kevin's like his only friend in the neighborhood. And right as he dies, he tells Kevin there's these creatures in his basement that that whole spaceship thing. I had to explain the origin, and I was trying to avoid, from Inner Earth, or just I was trying to go with something other than anything another ripoff of Gremlins used. Yeah, it had a lot to do with you never saw them, but they did speak, but they had red eyes that were just lights. They were silhouetted in the vault, the closet, which actually later became the vault. Later, when it became much more elaborate, the fantasies they did, there was that gray area of, does everyone see the fantasy they're creating, these phantom characters which disappear when you kill the creature? Is it only big... There was just a lot of stuff. The script was redone so many times, a lot to appease the distributor, and there's I don't know, it's too complicated of a script for the budget we had, is what it became. I still say, with a real budget, and not being made to look so intentionally campy. It's actually not that bad of a script. It's just, I mean, we shot that film for like $18,000. It was a 35 millimeter. So it just, the budget was so low. We had 1 week, and I didn't realize you need like special sets that are a couple feet off the ground to hide your puppeteers. And we never had a real puppeteer on set. It was just like, let's see, the guy doing boom, let the sound guy hold the boom. Can you just operate this? Just hold this thing and shake it around towards the actors. So, yeah, it's a very awkward story.
Our first one is, why do the Hobgoblins only go after Nick and his friends?
Okay, we had no budget. MacReady warns them that by daybreak, that was added later. I remember in Gremlins, their bright light scares them. And I remember trying to be clever of, they're attracted to bright lights. I bet people won't think it's stolen from Gremlins. Yeah, it didn't work. We had 4 puppets. We had like 3 or 4 locations. You know, where else were they? We didn't have the budget that they were going to overrun the city. And I'm pretty sure the bar scene, I think, was added later because I know in Gremlins they overtake the bar that Phoebe Cates works in. But I don't think her character was old enough to work in the bar. Every horror movie, they go after the friends of the lead. It's kind of a given. The single biggest plot hole is still, this one I was aware of. You know, MacReady could have locked that vault door. But he also couldn't have been devil's advocate of don't go down this hallway, which just forced people to, I don't know. It's one of those stories. Horror films don't work unless the characters are really stupid, or MacReady's so based on that character from Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Better leave that fireplace bricked shut. You never know what's behind it. If he had just kept his mouth shut, there wouldn't have been any trouble. But that's exactly where that's from. They're just MacReady warning people not to open the vault. It's just a horror movie cliche of just, you know, if you got to warn people not to do this, the whole story wouldn't have happened. Yeah, it's just an overdone horror movie cliche that I don't think anybody picked up on these plot holes or these. There's so many mistakes in the film, but yeah, Mystery Science Theater, they ripped that film to pieces. But before that, no one. The film never had fame as being that bad. It was just kind of. I mean, they've won a couple Peabody Awards. Believe me, if there's anything in your movie they can point out, make fun of or embarrass you with, they'll find it. Yeah, I'm not going to defend. I mean, the script had no. To me, I still think of them as implausibility things, but the film, it's a parody, it's a camp movie, it's much more of an intentional comedy than people will think it is. You just have to look at how I dressed everyone. Listen to Fantasia doing her phone sex. How could anyone think that was meant to be taken seriously, or the way Daphne's dressed? That outfit was out of style for 5 years already. I loved Valley Girl clothing. That's kind of a style I've used for female characters in a lot of my films, but it was out of style by winter '82. It came and went. I mean, that was not the current fashion when we made the movie. It was done as a joke. And I had her wear it in like hot pink and like that lime green. We went for the ugliest colors possible. But yeah, people just really need to look at the film and without Mystery Science Theater's commentary and say, yeah, this doesn't really look like it was trying. There's just no way we were trying to make a really serious horror film there. Another plot hole?
Well, not so much a plot hole, just something. Our third host is not here tonight because Fred, our third host, he's not here because he's sick. Pointed this out when he was watching it that why would the security guards don't wear headphones at their work? So the first security guard is wearing the headphones, you know, at the beginning of the movie.
That's not part of his job. That's much like people today, particularly young kids. Everyone has to be texting all day long. Mm-hmm. And when that film was made, it was just everybody. It was at the very beginning of those stupid Sony Walkmen, where a few years earlier the Ghetto Blaster was big. People had those huge radios where like the whole street could hear what music you were playing. And it was just kind of, I don't know, the fad of the time, like iPads or iPhones are today, of just stupid people always having their iPhone on and being not their iPhone, I mean that's today. Having their Sony Walkman on, wearing the tiny headphones, and listening to music and not paying attention to their job. If they had Starbucks 20 years ago, kind of what 7-Eleven employees used to do back then. It was just, it's just something only stupid people did, and something that someone who was horrible at their job would do. So yeah, it was definitely not part of his job. MacReady's yanking off the first security guard's head over and over again. But yeah, that was not job related. That was just the type of person who works for minimum wage to 2 a.m. related.
Fred was more angry about the fact that, I'm throwing this on Fred, angry about the fact that he hadn't been fired for wearing headphones at his job while his boss was right in front of him.
And it's not like MacReady really was a power player at that. It was more of a joke that the studio hadn't been in operation for 30 years. That it was just pretty much an empty. I mean, it was an empty bar. That's the location we saw. I mean, he wasn't guarding a studio where the sets were hot and there were actually actors showing up the next day for filming. It was, an abandoned area. Coincidentally, it was shot in a bad part of town. It was shot next door to a crack house. So we heard gunfire next door while we were filming. The film was very close to saying that. It was MacReady was still the next door neighbor, and it was his basement closet where those creatures were. And I just remember thinking just how cheap that was going to be to trap the movie inside the house. So I changed it. I just thought a movie vault. It was actually movie vaults. They look like they're not bank vaults. They look like storage units. So on top of it, we really cheated that one. It was, again, budgetary reasons. That was kind of when I was driving around looking for locations that nobody monitored at night where we would get thrown out because we had no permit and didn't ask for permission and didn't pay anyone. And we needed a place we could plug our lights in. That was just the one that I wound up choosing, and luckily, other than being next door to a crack house, which I wasn't aware of, I mean, nobody was there hassling us. Why are you filming here? People's lives in a parking lot. There's a whole character that's cut out of Mystery Science Theater. The actual guy who owns the studio, the one who talks to MacReady on the walkie-talkie at the beginning of the film and is on the telephone at the end. There is the character who runs the studio. And he's actually talking about... The problem is I think guards die at that studio or disappear before they ever get fired.
You have filled in my plot hole. Well, I guess there's one
not
other...
well.
You didn't
it's
have
not all argue a point to death, but these are... I'm going to blame that one. That was just budget. MacReady was not the one who hired. Have you seen the non-Mystery Science Theater version of the film?
No.
You really need to.
Fred has.
There's so much more movie they took out.
Our third co-host, Fred, actually saw it when it aired on TV, I think in the mid-'90s, even before Mystery Science touched it.
Actually, it never was on TV before Mystery Science Theater. A lot of people think that.
Oh.
Everyone thinks they've seen it on USA Network, which was where my other films played. Hobgoblins, it was never on TV until Mystery Science Theater actually acquired it.
What was it?
It was really popular on video. It was my first hit movie, so there's a lot of people had seen the movie, but it's so indistinguishable from all the other Gremlins ripoffs. So many people could remember, did they see Ghoulies or Critters or Munchies or Hobgoblins before Mystery Science Theater, but it was out there. I mean, the film did pretty well on video, but it was not on TV as far as I know. Well, if it was, I certainly wasn't before, but I'm pretty certain it was never on television before that. And if it was, probably a lot of the time would have been chopped out anyway. Do you know the company that had the original video rights, or who the original video distributor was? It was Transworld Entertainment, the same people who put out Killer Clowns the exact same year as Hobgoblins. Please stay seated till the film comes to a complete stop. That's something, if you've never been to Disneyland, you're not going to pick up on that joke. Have you ever been to Disneyland? When I was like 4, so no. All the rides at Disneyland, I don't know if they've changed the original tape recording that you hear. As far as I know, I think they're still the same. Every ride, Fantasyland, Haunted Mansion, I think was the loudest. Because it's so much of entering your car, and they always have that, please remain in the vehicle until the ride comes to a complete stop. Every ride had that. I'm sure there was some lawsuit or someone who climbed out of a moving vehicle and fell over and sued. It was just that repetition of that canned voice saying it over and over all day long. Please remain seated until the ride comes to a complete stop. That stupid safety bar would lift up on its own and you get out. It was a parody of that. I just thought it was funny putting it at the end of a movie, as if I hadn't tormented people long enough. Only because there was one more joke coming. Fantasia has one more line at the end of the movie, which this one I thought was funny because it still would have kept the film in PG. Mystery Science Theater took this one out. She appears once more with this little cup of popcorn, and she goes, "The next time you see a movie that's only rated PG, I want you to make it rated X. The popcorn just pops and erupts all over her face and she starts laughing. So they took that out, but I put that title card in because I know most people were probably going to have shut the movie off way before it got there. And it was kind of like, wait a minute, there's one more bad joke coming. So that's what that card's based on. That's why it was put in there.
What are your favorite moments from the movie Hobgoblins?
Hobgoblins was never one of my favorite movies. That film never was on my director's radar. My favorite moments. Visitants is one I made about 10 months before Hobgoblins. It's my favorite movie. Everything worked. That was the one I wanted to have a cult following. That was the one I really wanted Mystery Science Theater to take. It wasn't bad enough. Do I have favorite moments in Hobgoblins? I know Daphne is my favorite character, but it was never a film I was that fond of. I was kind of surprised it's the one I'm best known for today that wouldn't have been the one I would have chosen. I think my favorite scenes would be anything after. It's literally for an 87-minute movie. It's right at like 42 to 44 minutes when things start happening. Probably the minute the Hobgoblins get on the golf cart, which as cool as the golf cart is, it's probably the worst scene when they can barely move. Probably for once the puppets escape and the stupidity of everyone dancing to the record. Pretty much the second half of the movie, I think, moves really well. It's just the 40 minutes of exposition getting there is really slow. The Hobgoblins actually did appear in the first 5 minutes. The first security guard when he goes in the vault. Somehow I still have the negative. It's going to wind up being a DVD bonus at some point. He's attacked and bitten by one of the puppets, and that's how he dies. That's why there's all the blood on him. I see him on the floor. It was just 3 minutes into the movie we see that these puppets can't move, and I remember thinking, this is really going to hurt distribution to see. Puppet movies are based on the puppet, and I didn't think it was a good idea showing that early in the film. Yeah, I mean, that scene was removed, and we reshot a different scene in its place, but, yeah, I'd say pretty much the second half of the movie I think moves really well. I actually could handle the first half. It's exposition central, that movie. I mean, like, McCready's 5-minute discussion of how the puppets arrived on the lot and everything. Just any scene where something's actually happening, like, I don't know, the first puppet attack, Nick throwing the grenades at the club, Amy's striptease and Kevin shot, stuff like that. The stuff where at least the energy was there and the picture's moving, and it's more funny than painfully slow. Those would be my favorites.
And they made that comment in the episode, in the Mystery Science version about, finally, we're getting some Hobgoblins.
Yeah.
Let's jump right into Mystery Science Theater 3000. When did you first see Mystery Science Theater 3000? Just the show.
The show before my movie?
Yes.
I knew what it was. I mean, I can't pinpoint which episodes I've seen. There's a lot of the 50s black and white public domain monster movies. I don't know. I'd watched the show. I knew what it was. I found a lot of episodes were hit and miss. I think Hobgoblins was possibly one of the best fits for their sense of humor. I mean, it was their highest rated episode. I was really looking at that one. Now, all this stuff was always funny. I just remember because they rarely paid for a movie, I remember certain films really were good episodes. Most of the writers were really fond of the handful of 80s movies they did. Those were actually the cast members and writers. They loved the 80s movies. But because they didn't have a lot of choice with bad public domain movies, yeah, some of their episodes aren't that funny. Yeah, when they get a film that really, really is mockable, I mean, they go to town on it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely had seen a good number of episodes way before they did my movie.
So you prefer it when they rip something from the 80s?
That was actually their quote. It's hard to say. Just certain films lend themselves better. I mean, I know like today, because Mystery Science Theater actually it spurned like 3 spin-offs, because I don't think there was a whole legal thing they could never agree upon who owned what. But I think one writer came up with a title, but another person came up with a concept. It was just there's such dissension of who owned what that the show was going to come back on the air with all new episodes about 3 or 4 years ago. And they were never able to settle this. And actually, Hobgoblins 2 was made. It was going to be their debut episode for the return of the show. And and legally they were never able to resolve it, so it didn't happen. And they kind of split off to Cinematic Titanic and Riff Tracks. But yeah, you look at today. Again, they aren't paying for films; they're only getting stuff that's public domain. So it's kind of, it's just, they get Night of the Living Dead, they got House on Haunted Hill. But sometimes it's not really a film they're choosing. Where with Riff Tracks, where they don't actually license the film, they only give you the audio and you get to place it over the movie. They have a lot more freedom. Where they're intentionally going for films they would have preferred.
So they've never come to you. Cinematic Titanic has never come to you asking to do Hobgoblins 2.
I don't think I didn't give it to them. All the Mystery Science Theater clones have seen Hobgoblins 2. I submitted all of them. They thought it was a little too intentionally in on the joke. It's only because part one was far more in on the joke than most people are aware. It's just, it looked innocent, like we didn't know. Two, it's a little more contrived. Basically, if the show had come back on the air, it was going to be theirs, but they just don't pay to license films. I know, I'm pretty sure Riff Tracks, some fan, did a version of it. I have several fans who actually riffed it and sent me DVDs of it. So, yeah, a lot of people are doing their own version of Part 2, but it's just hard. And I was never truly able to recapture the charm of the first movie the second time around. I really tried. And I always questioned if maybe sticking a little too closely to a 20-year-old script could have worked against me. But yeah, I really was hoping one of them would actually take the film. None truly have interest, but you never know. Fans were too busy riffing it on their own, I think. I think they realized that everyone could look at the film without their riffing and know what they would be doing, so the surprise value would be there.
That's a possibility. They both tend to not do comedies, especially ones that are really in on the joke, because it kind of cheapens the riffs.
And that's what the original Hobgoblins was. That's what's so funny. Hobgoblins was never made as a horror movie. It was much more. It's funny. The exact reason they didn't want to was the first film is just nobody picks up how in on the joke I was. Though a lot of people like to think I'm saying that later, defending the movie. It's like, no, it's a terrible film. I was never proud of it. But there's a lot more intentional humor in the movie than people think was meant to be. A serious film, it would have been scary, it would have been full of so much derogatory humor, I wouldn't have dressed the characters like fools. So the first one had an innocence that I think was able to slip by as people thought it was probably meant to be serious.
Makes sense.
Now, the long-standing rumor was that you gave them the movie Hobgoblins to riff.
I've always been puzzled how that became so well known. The actual version is USA Network owned Sci-Fi Channel, and after 7 seasons, Mystery Science Theater went from Comedy Central over to Sci-Fi Channel, and USA Network basically was offering them the entire library to look at our films. We have the rights to that you can do, and USA Up All Night, which was where I had 7 movies airing. That's actually my favorite originally. They had all the Vice Academy films. Without telling me, because, my contract was, my films, besides being licensed for USA Up All Night, it was pretty much anything USA wanted to do with them they could do. They submitted all my movies to Best Brains, the writers of Mystery Science Theater, and they contacted me directly saying, do you have any movies that aren't so sexual in nature? So they contacted me asking what else I had. So they did. USA Network submitted my movies first, but not the ones they wanted. They contacted me what else I had. I avoided giving them Hobgoblins because I knew they would rip it apart. I submitted Visitants, which I really, really, really wanted to do, which they said it was too intentionally campy, which are populated people of Hobgoblins. Blood Theater, which I thought possibly, but the film is so bad and it's my first movie. I was 21. I disjoined it. I don't think they saw enough structure to it. And Mind, Body, and Soul, probably my only real horror movie, which would have happened. It was too horrific for television. So I actually have the letter where they rejected that film. They just said, you have to pass on this one. It's not right for us. And for the third time, they asked, what else do you have? And I bit the bullet and submitted Hobgoblins. In 24 hours, I got the phone call they wanted that movie. So yes, I submitted it to them, but I don't know why everybody laughs at me for doing it. I knew what I was getting into, and unlike most directors whose films are on that show, I got a pretty good check for it. At least I got paid for the jokes they made at my expense, which I think penny for penny they got the money's worth.
According to some sources, you regretted that decision to give them the rights to it. Was that ever true? Never?
No, I mean, I loved what they did to the movie. I mean, I never liked that film. It is 100 times better with their version of it. It makes the film watchable. I cringed through the end credits. I have never seen them drag out a mannequin to a fake interview. I saw that their episode of Hobgoblins when it debuted, like everyone else. They did not send me an advance copy. And I remember in the contract I had to sign with them, I should have been a little more savvy, but I knew what the show was. They have an entire paragraph, you may not sue them for any jokes made at your expense. It's actually in there. You cannot go after them for anything they say about you. Maybe there were other episodes where they ripped the directors apart. I didn't really see any of those, but I still think Hobgoblins was the single episode. They really went after the music director, where I think mostly I thought it was funny when they were going after the actors and the bad plot problems and the cheap puppets, but I hated the interview with me over the end credits, but no, I do not regret it. I mean, the fan base that movie developed, that it surpassed anything else I've made, in terms of what I'm going to be known for forever. No, I don't regret it. That is definitely a rumor, much like people thinking the film was not intentionally. The film's intentionally funny, intentionally bad, I'll say, yeah. Again, it's someone else's interpretation that, God, he must have really regretted giving him the movie, but I've never said that. I regretted they didn't take part 2, let's just say that. I regretted they didn't take more of my films. That's the truth, but no, I do not regret that they have the movie.
Getting off the topic of, obviously you said that you didn't like that one little scene, but you really didn't like that one little scene. But we've met directors who were appalled, hated the Mystery Science Theater versions. Why do you think that is, that some directors just hate the Mystery Science Theater version outright?
Only because I met Mary Jo Pell and I heard a lot of stories from her. They've gotten death threats from directors. I don't think a lot of filmmakers take themselves really seriously. I knew Hobgoblins was a bad film. It's not that I thought I made a good film and I was embarrassed what they did to it. I knew the film was going to be perfect for them. I'm very self-aware of what my movies look like. I thought it was my very first job I had from 17 to 20 years old was I was working in conjunction with 20th Century Fox, doing conventions promoting Rocky Horror and its upcoming sequel, Shock Treatment. So I knew specifically what made a cult movie, of what they went after. While fans may have discovered Rocky Horror and made it a cult movie, the studio, believe me, they fed into it the film would not have maintained this 35-year fame without them actually working with fans to keep that whole cult thing going. I wanted the movie where people would dress as the characters and yell back at it, and I tried, but I tried on Dissident. It is odd that the one movie, I didn't try for Hobgoblins to be the movie people would yell back at, but it worked for that, but I had been trying it previously. I didn't know what the original question was. What was it?
Why do some directors not like the Mystery Science Theater version?
Because they have no sense of humor, and they probably, much like the same rumors about me that do I regret it, a lot of people think they made good movies, and I think they were mortified by what they did to their entire movie. I laughed at and a lot of it was 7 years before Mystery Science Theater ever did Hobgoblins. I had Vice Academy in 1990 going on USA Network, which was interrupted with jokes made at the film's expense. And it became USA Network's highest-rated movie late night of all time. So my career was pretty much based on, I began learning why you could yell back at Rocky Horror. My films were always aired with being interrupted with jokes made at the film. So it was kind of something, I don't know, I knew what my films were. I liked comedy. I thought it was funny. Other filmmakers took themselves too seriously. I've said this in multiple interviews. What did they think Mystery Science Theater was going to say about their movie? I'm sure they probably thought they were going to be honored because they made a good movie in their mind. I don't think they really understood, they're going to rip that movie to pieces and make jokes that may bring a lot of people to tears. And, all the actors in Hobgoblins love the Mystery Science Theater episode. Other filmmakers, I think it's probably why their movies weren't as popular and they get such good ratings. They just think it was funny, I went to film school once. I know every other student there, if they had a film that someone did that to, I mean, they would be angered for the rest of their life. And you make a bad movie, you better bite the bullet. And I think a lot of people, their films probably wound up on that show without them. They were either public domain or someone else had the rights. I think a lot of filmmakers never got paid. At least I got paid to be made fun of.
Going back to something you said a second ago, how did you meet Mary Jo Pale, and what was that meeting like?
It was funny. I was in touch only because of Hobgoblins 2 through my agent. I was in contact, mostly just emails back and forth. Mary Jo was just, everyone else, when I would contact them, it was a lot of one-sentence replies. Mary Jo was kind of the first one. She actually wrote back like a couple paragraphs. She goes, "You have no idea how embarrassing this is for me to have been part of me." She was apologizing for what they did to my movie. She was like the only one who really took the time to actually send a full response that, "We'll look at your movie," with pretty much a lot of these other places. And she was the only one I actually developed any connection of just emailing more than once back and forth. And I wasn't embarrassed. I mean, personally, I wish I had some of the props in their episode. I would have on display the book of lesser-known directors if I could have that prop, or the actual film can with the poison warning on it. I would love to have some of the props of the episode. I don't know. She was just the one that we kind of struck up some level of friendship, and she was touring with Cinematic Titanic. They were doing live episodes, and they were going to be in Los Angeles. Yeah, it was just kind of, I don't know. I think she invited me to the show, and I brought the Kelly Palmer, who played Daphne, and Tom Bartlett, who played Kevin, with me. And so we all met with her, and she was incredibly nice. And I had her come over, and we did a little interview. She actually brought her husband. She actually said when she showed up, they've gotten so many death threats, she wasn't sure if I was inviting her over to murder her. And I said, no. I mean, she said, I found it in multiple interviews with her online that she has said I'm possibly one of the only directors who really liked what they did to their movie. But I loved meeting her. I know when I went to their live show, I'm sure at least one or two of the, I don't know who from Mr. Theater went to Cinematic Titanic. I'm sure at least one or two of the guys from the episode were there. But we never had any camaraderie back and forth. I don't think they really, I don't know. To them it was just an episode. I think Mary Jo just felt like personal guilt for how far they took that one. But I loved her. I'd love to work with her. I think she's really funny. She was such a good sport about it.
That's good to hear. We've heard about a lot of directors that were not in on the joke, or didn't get the joke.
Stars.
And Stars is much bigger.
Anyone in the Mystery Science Theater episode, I would not use the word star, maybe actors.
Well, what are your favorite moments from the MST3K episode?
Have you seen the Mystery Science Theater, the Peanut Gallery, the book that came out last year?
You mean the big that student published book that had all the essays in it?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to read it.
Well, I had the personal honor. I was the only director they asked to contribute to the book. I thought that I was very flattered, and I don't think I earned this, but they gave me. I'm chapter 1 in the book. I mean, there's like 30 essays, but you open the book, and the very first thing is a picture of me with a Hobgoblin puppet holding the Mystery Science Theater DVD cover up. No, it was an honor, and probably one of my personal favorite interviews where, I don't know, just because it was going to be like in a book where I got to go back and rewrite it and like revise it a number of times. I really covered just a lot of the entire progression. They had a lot of interesting questions I hadn't heard of making the film, of how they got it, of what I thought about it and its legacy. But my favorite line is still and always, "There's been an accident at the studio. We made Hobgoblins." That was my favorite. And I actually called my essay in the book, "There's been an accident at the studio, how we made Hobgoblins." That was one of the other ones I really liked. In the future, can we only have films made by real filmmakers? These are ones I actually laughed at. I laughed through so much of the movie, it's hard to pinpoint specifics. A lot of their jokes, until I went onto fan websites and had them explain, I didn't even pick up the Mel's Rock. A lot of the jokes I didn't even get. They were so obscure. I mean, I I laughed through so much of the movie. Probably only because I went to high school with the actress who plays Daphne. A lot of the jokes at her are pretty funny. Like the one where she first goes outside and is attacked from, like, sure thing, olive oil. Is that a praying mantis in a party dress? Oh, it's her. Just waiting impatiently. You know, really anyone will do. I mean, the whole thing was funny. And she has the strength of 100 or 1,000 Trollocs. Tell Lorraine Newman. She got some of the. I think of all the characters, she got some of the best gags. Or someone's rubbing puppets on. It's hard to pinpoint one. I mean, there's no misfire jokes they had. I mean, even scenes where nothing's going on, they found good humor. A lot of the ones during the Fontanelle song, I don't think were that funny, like when they're singing the dream.
Kiss Fish Picker.
It's so easy to tell the song's called Kiss Kicker. I think Bootlickers is the one that's the second chorus, the one that they were confused what it said. I don't know. Fans think that joke was far funnier than I did. I'm thinking, the song's not as rife for parody as some of the dialogue of the film. Fans love that. All the pot stickers, pig liquor, pig. It's hard to pick a bad joke for that episode.
Will there be a Hobgoblins 3?
It's unlikely. Hobgoblins 2 was so heavily pirated. 24 days after it was out on DVD, you could watch it for free on 35 websites. It took a big toll financially. Yeah, actually, 3 is actually a really good. Was actually the better script. I probably should have skipped over 2 and just used 3 for the sequel, but it's 20 years later, which actually fits in instead of trying to pick the film up where the first one left off. Kevin and his friends have all gone their separate ways. It's MacReady's funeral. They're all contacted. They reunite for the first time and see each other again, and except for Amy, I had all the other 4 were coming back. They all said yes. Kevin and Amy, they are married. They have a sexless marriage. There's no chemistry. Nick and Daphne separated because, well, Nick was off in the war in the 80s. He had sex with an Asian hooker, and their illegitimate daughter, her name's Trailer Park, comes to visit Daphne with a photo of her mother with Nick and demands to move in and be supported. Kyle has gone through sexual addiction counseling, and Fantasia's in jail for all the money that she's swindled out of guys, and she calls Kyle, and he's a sucker, and he posts her bail and wants her to move in with him. And during the funeral, MacReady leaves them a video will warning. I did like in the sequel saying their name 3 times causes trouble. Just one final warning of never make any other wish when you say their name 3. No matter how tempting it may be, just because they're not around, you could still cause trouble for yourself. Every character makes a huge mistake. Nick gets re-enlisted in the war to get away from Daphne. He's being sent to a place where he's clearly going to be killed. Daphne really regrets that they broke up, that she kind of pushed him to leaving her so that he's going to wind up being killed. Amy has an affair for the first time and has so much guilt that Kevin's going to find out. She's going to have to tell him. Kyle wakes up drugged. Fantasia is on the internet with instructions of how to harvest human organs, and she's having an online auction for his kidneys and all his other organs that he's tied down. And she has a scalpel in hand with an amateur surgery book. Kevin hears about what everyone has done. He goes, oh my God, I hope they don't do it. And all the other characters except for Kevin say, I wish I hadn't done this, and they say Hobgoblins 3 times. You hear the rumbling of thunder. Kevin makes the worst mistake of all. He goes, what am I going to do? I wish Mr. MacReady hadn't have died. And MacReady comes back from the grave, deteriorated after a couple weeks, to visit Kevin, where all hell is breaking loose. The puppets are back, and he has this great monologue of, Kevin, you need to end what these creatures have done. What am I going to do with my life? I can't work at Walmart as a senior greeter. I refuse service at Hometown Buffet. Let me rest in peace. And Kevin and his friends have to go back to Bronson Canyon, where the spaceship where the puppets are still living, and just blow the place up forever. And finally, it would have been the final one. 3 would have been a great movie, especially the original actors coming back for a number of reasons. Video piracy, online internet piracy, some spitefulness from other people, some just Mr. Sunseeter not being brought back after all. It just didn't happen. But I think I always warned fans, yeah, there is a script for 3. Only because I wanted to do the DVD box set, which I'm really proud. It would be Hobgoblins, Bad Things Come in 3.
I like to think that script has like a caution tape over it and like a skull and crossbones
Actually, 3's a good script. The first one's the one that 2 should have. I don't know. 2 isn't the movie I was hoping it would be. It's just 3. I think 3 is the best script of the whole series. Not that 1 and 2 had good scripts. Just 3 I thought was a really good one. It was just kind of 3 because I was aware of what 1 could have been with the right budget. That 3 was just written with knowing everything that people caught and pointed out didn't work in the first one. It was the redemption one, which I'm sure it still would have been funny. It was just the one where people would not be able to make the list of plot holes. That would have been a good resolution. It's a way of going back and actually correcting all the plot holes of, well, we may not have explained it well in that movie, but let's fix them and actually explain them better now. I wish 3 had happened. It would have been fun in the original. I know Mary Jo Pehl was going to be the nurse at the senior citizens home where McCready, she's actually the one with him when he died. She said yes to the part. So it would have had a great opening as McCready's dying. The nurse who turns around is witnessing it is her. I thought would have been hysterical.
That would
have been very funny.
Such a missed opportunity.
I know. Well, it's not like I burned the script. It says that you never know if it might happen. It's pretty unlikely. I don't know. If fans were clamoring for a third one, it would get made. Fans really didn't embrace 2 as much. Again, who's going to pay to watch that movie when you can watch it for free? Which that happens to theatrical films. Direct-to-DVD movies never wind up on those piracy sites. They don't bother with those movies. I was shocked. With that, I would blame that 2/3 of the reason why it didn't get made. It was just the popularity of 2 was completely shot down from piracy. I wasn't in the mood of making a 3 and watching it get pirated like the second one.
We have 2 more questions left. And
yeah.
this is one of the things that I've always wondered about. They did another movie later called Final Justice that was directed by a gentleman named Graydon Clark.
This was on IMDb is where that one started. Someone else who has interviewed me about Hobgoblins actually had interviewed him. And I said, do you still have contact? Can you ask him how his name is not in the credits of the movie. For some reason on IMDb, it shows up. I'm sure I've submitted to have it corrected.
It has since been corrected.
He says he has no idea. I don't know how it's wrong. I've never met the man. I don't know him. He never worked on the movie. He has nothing to do with it. It's just, yes, on Internet Movie Database, his name is listed as producer. And, yeah, there's that other episode where they mentioned I was the producer of Hobgoblins. But, don't know Graydon Clark. I don't know how he feels having his name attached to that movie, but he never worked on it, never had anything to do with it. I've never been to him. Never spoken with him. Never been in email contact with him either. I had someone else ask me. I don't know where that one started.
I think it started with the Mystery Science Theater, and they were mistaken. They thought
they got it from IMDb.
I don't think was IMDb around in 1999?
I don't believe
God,
so.
It's been around forever. Yeah, that's where it's way before Mystery Science Theater made that joke. I was trying to get that correct. Way before they were acquired by Hobgoblins. That's been on IMDb since at least 1990. I have no idea how it got on there, but yeah, a lot of people, because it's not anywhere in the film credits. That's why I'm amazed people don't confirm it. But if you do internet research, I'm sure there's still multiple sources that still list him as producer of that film.
But the Mystery Science Theater fan site page, every year his birthday comes along, says director of Angel's Revenge, director of Final Justice, which those 2 he did direct, and producer of Hobgoblins.
They didn't even have my birthday up on that.
I believe they do.
I had emailed them to point it out, but they need to stop keeping that rumor. They're just probably not aware. Yeah, they're probably keeping the rumor alive. Personally, I always questioned if he is the one who put his name on IMDb because it's a famous movie, and I'm not accusing him of it. I'm just never sure how his name wound up on there. For someone I've never met.
Maybe I'll have to look at maybe it was like a video label mistake or something, but I've got to look into this.
It's definitely not. It's nowhere on the movie.
Okay.
It's just IMDb has this problem, which I have to do a lot of correction, because anybody can put their name on any movie without them. They don't actually confirm any information. You can lie and put your name on any movie on there of a job you did, and unless the filmmaker just happens to see it and recorrects it.
Or if it's something like Avatar, which is massively big.
No, I've had multiple times actors who I think they might have been an extra, but I've had to delete a lot of people. I mean, people I fired off movies that never actually were in the final version. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know Brandon Clark personally, but I do question how his name is attached to that movie. Cause I don't know. I'm not really certain. All I know is it began on IMDb. Someone had to have put it on there because it's not in the credits. I don't know if he made anything similar to it. Maybe someone got mixed up. But yeah, IMDb had it first, and Mystery Science Theater spread the rumor. That's not true.
For the record, fans out there, Great on Clark had nothing to do with the movie Hobgoblins.
Yeah, I think he should be the first one saying it, getting his name removed from it if he was smart. It's not a movie most people would like to say I had something to do with. There's another one, someone I went to school with who is a favor. I gave him assistant directing credit on the movie, even though he was barely on set. He's best known as the overacting extra in Hobgoblins. Every director's commentary I do, I have this award I give out called the most annoying extra, because there's always one extra in every movie that I have to literally, when someone either has no dialogue and they're in the background, and their acting is so bad that I have to cut around them. They annoy the hell out of me on set. He got the award, but he has done countless interviews claiming like he was co-filmmaker and how much he had to do with that movie. Let's see, he painted those hee-haw signs for Reputation Road, and that's his van we're using in the movie. That's all he had to do with the movie. But in all his interviews, you'd think the film couldn't be made without him. That's a much better example of, the film has fame. A lot of people get a free ride off that film's fame. And a lot of times it's, much like people went to film school with me that I haven't heard from, I don't even know, that I wasn't really friends with, that have called and asked to borrow money over the years. It is something when you have some minimal level of fame of people I went to grade school with, who I have to go on Wikipedia. I'm constantly having to, the guy who had assistant director credit on Hobgoblins, only because you can trace on Wikipedia who is posting stuff about you. I have contacted him at least 5 different occasions to stop posting personal information. What I did in junior high, your personal life's your personal life. It doesn't belong on Wikipedia. Nothing I was embarrassed of. It's just what I did in grade school, junior high, and high school. It really doesn't belong on these sites that are talking about my film career. And it angers me a lot that people keep doing it, but it's mostly to serve themselves of, well, I went to grade school with him, so I had something to do with just people promoting themselves by pumping up the fact they knew me before I had any level of fame, and that does bother me. So I have no clue how that got on there, but I've had other people who've done similar things. So
Right.
I'm going to wrap this interview up with one final question.
What does the road for Rick Sloane have next?
The one movie that I really wanted Mystery Science Theater to run, which was originally called Mind, Body, and Soul. It's my only film that ever had censorship issues. It's a graphic film about a satanic cult, was banned in 14 countries. The film is so minimally, it's one of my least known films because even in the United States, they had to slip it inside a box set because the film would never get an R. The film's banned in the UK alone, which puts it on the video nasty list. And 20 years ago, that was a kiss of death. Any film that's banned and made that list is extremely popular today because I don't know exactly which filmmaker did it first, but that whole releasing a second unrated version of your movie is huge, and people seek these things out. So I went back to all the scenes that I had to take out of that movie. I restored them. I recut the movie because it was done by someone else. It's been retitled House on the Edge of Hell. The trailer is on YouTube. The movie's not as scary as the trailer makes it look really frightening. It's just a film few people ever saw the first time around. I'm really going to capitalize on the controversy that people could probably dispute, was the film really banned? Was it that controversial? I went on Google, I went on the British Film Board site. There's a list of, yes, that film is banned in its original version to this day. It is not legal to own in England in its original version. There were 3 minutes removed and 3 edits before the film was passed. Germany, a country that usually everything will be released uncut, they took 3 minutes out of. all of Asia except for Japan. The film was banned to this day. Half of South and Central America. 14 to 20 countries, the film was either you were never allowed to release it, or it was heavily edited. So it's just no one's ever seen all the stuff that came out of the movie. So yeah, I restored the film to what it would have been without trying to pass it by the censors. It's being released uncut and uncensored for the first time. It's unlike any of my other films. It is not a copy. It's a very shocking movie. It's similar to Angel Hearts. I have a really cool poster. I think it's on my Facebook page. Yeah, that's my next film that's being reissued. And where I normally have one script I'm working on, because I just don't know today's market as well. I have 5 different scripts. I don't know which one's next, but they're all very identifiable. Yeah, if you miss the end credits, you know they were my films because my sense of humor is very distinct. House on the Edge of Hell will be out on DVD end of this year. Not sure which one is next. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's called Which One a Distributor Thinks This Is the One We Could Sell. That'll be the next one.
Hopefully that will be the title of the film.
Oh, they all have really good titles. Okay. Constance Mary Full of Grace is my personal favorite. It's like a Candyman urban legend type of script. That's my personal choice. It would star Mary Warnoff. It's again one of those. There's never been a really good Bloody Mary urban legend movie. It's another retelling of it. That's most likely the one I'm going to go for, but it is a bigger budget film. It has a lot of flashbacks to 40 years ago. They had to write me to a scary movie, which was going to be to look like Scary 5, which has still never been in front of. I do have 5 scripts. There's a good number of them. There's another one that's kind of Feathers meets Reanimator that I have a script to. That's closest to my normal sense of humor. But yeah, I have a pile of them. I don't know which one's going to get that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Sloane, for agreeing to appear on our show.
And thank you to any fans who like to listen this far through it.
Thank you, Rick, for appearing on our show.
Oh, it's fun.
We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for keeping the legacy of Hobgoblins alive. I always feared after it went off the air at Mystery Science Theater that it would slip back into being forgotten. And it lives. I mean, it is still on IMDb's top 25 worst films of all time list. That film, I've accepted. It's gonna haunt me forever. So I embrace it now. And I hear from fans that actually today, the very day we did this interview, I got another interview request from a fan. I'll be doing another one next week. So. I love hearing from fans. I've never quite understood the popularity of that episode, and I'm honored and pleased. Unlike other filmmakers, yeah, I do think it was funny, and I'm very honored whenever I hear from fans. I do a lot of interviews. I'm very flattered when people contact me, so thank you. I'm thankful to them to keep for giving the film its second life. I'm thankful for fans for keeping that second life moving.
So, any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Go buy the Hobgoblins 2 DVD. Don't.
I know.
And this has been the MSTieCast. Thank you all very much for listening. For Fred Fritz, I'm Toby Mobius.
I'm Joshua MacLeod.
And I'm Rick Sloane, the guy who has haunted you with Hobgoblins. And thanks for listening.
Play us out, Neil.